Back on October 15th, 2004, my girlfriend thought it would be a good idea to take me to Bachelor's Grove Cemetery a week before my birthday as one of my presents. I am really into the supernatural, so I was really excited about it. I even went and bought a digital voice recorder and got out my digital camera. We left that Saturday at about 12:00 p.m. I live about an hour and a half away, so I wanted to get as much out of this as possible. When we arrived, we parked across the street in the Forest Preserve parking lot, then walked across the street. There's nowhere to park other than there, and if you try to park elsewhere, you will be towed and get a ticket. The walk from there is not very far, but as we got closer to the gate, it started to feel really odd. I turned on my recorder and it would skip from 17 seconds to 23. I kept it going and we took a whole bunch of pictures. It was about 42 degrees that day and it started raining, so we hurried it up and took as many pictures as we could. While we were there, we noticed a really bizarre feeling of being watched. I kept getting the feeling something was breathing down my neck. We decided to leave after being there about 20 minutes. It was creeping us out and we were the only ones there. I left the recorder going till we got to the end of trail leaving the grounds. Once we got to the car, I replayed all of our footage. I almost literally had a heart attack at what I heard. I heard a voice whisper to get out and other things, like at one point I said to my girlfriend, "Take a picture of me next to here." Then you hear, almost in a taunting manner, "Yes, go ahead, take a picture." The really freaky stuff started happening after we got home. That night, now keep in mind I'm extremely healthy and I never get sick. I felt perfect that day. And out of nowhere that night I got a bad cough and sore throat. There is no way possible I could get that sick for being in the cold, dressed as warm as I was for 20 minutes. Anyway, the next morning when my girlfriend came over, I was worse. I had a fever of about 101 and I had been having diarrhea. I was so sick I could barely move. She brought her laptop over and we viewed the pictures together. We got a lot of things on camera. We got a picture of a man by a fallen tree, a full-body apparition of a woman floating, holding what looked to be flowers. Lots of other pictures were of faces and white mists. After that ordeal, things got worse. About a month after that, we moved into an apartment together, and after only 2 months, we were in a car accident. A month after that, she lost her job for no reason, followed by me losing mine. No matter how many interviews we went on, we could not find a job. That whole year was bad luck. We got sick all the time with flu bugs and had problems with our apartment. We lost our place after barely a year. We had to move in with my parents, and it was months before we found work again. I really believe the cemetery had something to with it, because before that we were happy and healthy. I will never go back there again. My friends want to, but I tell them they are nuts. There is something more to that place than people think. I never believed in curses or anything like that until that happened. Things have gotten a little better for us, but not perfect. It's been 2 years. I still have my voice recordings and pictures, and I listen to the strange voices still. I show my pictures to people, and I have tried putting them on ghost sites, but they have never been displayed like I hoped they would be. To all of you ghost hunters out there, I would highly recommend you never go there. That place is haunted and a good find, but it's better to just leave those spirits in peace. They obviously don't want people there. Ghosts are definitely not real. Those were my words said before we started our trip up to the mountains of Baguio City. A group of delegates from our grade school department were going to a leadership seminar in one of the most haunted places in the Philippines teachers' camp. Plenty of ghost stories come from that dreaded place where we were about to stay for 6 days. It was known for its old age and the rumors that it was built on top of a war-related area. People see ghosts of war veterans and enemy soldiers kidnapping women. I thought I could never experience something like that, but I was wrong. First day of the trip was fun, as I remember. We went biking around the park there and hung out in the hotel room of one of the delegates' parents. I didn't even think about the place we were really supposed to stay, until of course I saw our hall in teachers' camp. The camp was enormous, plenty of halls we could have stayed in, but of all of the halls we were assigned to White Hall, the oldest and the one in the worst condition. The floor would creak with every step, and because of an opening between the ceiling and wall, you could hear anything from chattering teachers to the bags of others dragged on the floor. Our toilets didn't even work well, so every day I dreaded coming back to that hall at night. The long-awaited first night in our room finally came, and as usual, I didn't sleep well. I always have difficulty sleeping, whether at home or a creepy camp. Room 109 was our assigned quarters. 4 other girls stayed in the room with me, and they were comfortable with the place, just a bit disgusted at the counterproductive toilet. Anyway, as I was saying, I didn't sleep well at all. I was awake until the hours of 11, desperately trying to sleep. Of course, I left the lights on, fearing something might go bump that night. Finally, I fell asleep for around 4 hours and woke up again at 3 a.m. Screw sleep, I thought. Luckily, I brought an interesting book from my sister. I read undisturbed, yet still a bit paranoid for a few minutes, until I heard something. Footsteps, faint yet coming closer. I stopped reading and waited if they'd actually get louder. They did. Before anything got any louder, I actually peeked outside of my room. Finding nothing, but the footsteps kept coming, stronger and closer as it headed down from the stairs across the room. I went back to my bed and just stayed there, sitting upright, my ears eagerly taking in the footsteps. I was nervous. I tried to calm myself, saying that there were late guests coming in. But then the footsteps reached the entrance of the room, so roughly that I felt the bed move whenever it sounded. I freaked and hid my head under the blanket, hurriedly reciting my prayers while my friends slept soundly. I feared I'd see something that I'd remember for the rest of my life. The footsteps felt as if it was coming towards my bed. Then it stopped. I lifted enough courage to look up from my blanket. I saw a white, shady figure with a somewhat bloodied face. It was only for a few seconds until I finally got the urge to hide myself from it. I hid under the blanket again. The footsteps ensued, but this time grew fainter and fainter until it was gone. Like the figure. I was so scared I could barely get sleep. For the passing days in room 109, nothing else happened. I told my friends about this ghostly experience and they laughed about it. I know what I saw, whether it was a ghost or just my mind playing paranoid tricks on me. I still go to teacher's camp and I still hear stories of the hauntings, even one similar to mine. But hearing or reading ghost stories can never amount to the thrill of experiencing one. My first summer after high school, I worked for my neighbor. He had a contracting business that mainly did light remodels on houses, painting, general carpentry, basic landscaping, building decks, stuff like that. The usual crew was this guy, his partner, myself, and one or two of my friends, and a general laborer or two, depending on the size of the job. About halfway through the summer, we got a job to do some cleanup on a house a few towns over which had been neglected for a while. Repaint inside and out, fix some squeaky floors and water damage, clean up the yard, etc. It was a decent-sized house and needed a ton of work, and the estimate was that it would take about a month to do it right. The homeowners had no problem as they were not living there and were planning on selling the place. Everything inside had already been cleared out, for the most part. The first few days we spent just clearing brush and stuff out of the yard so we could get equipment in to work on the exterior. Once that was done, we split off into two crews, one scraping the outside of the house and one doing work on the inside. It was the summer, and the place did not have AC, so the easier job was the work outside, and we would rotate who was in and who was out. To give you an idea of the layout of the house, when you walked in the front door, you had large room off to your immediate right and left. Straight ahead of you and to your left, you had a staircase that went up to the second floor. To the right, a small bathroom, and then straight back to the kitchen and another large room. Upstairs, you had 4 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. There was only one staircase to the second floor. We started in the front rooms, and within an hour or so, our radio started acting up. It was an older boombox type thing with a manual cassette player, and the knob with the slide for tuning the stations. In other words, it was all mechanical, not digital. At least 3 times the station changed on its own, from 102.7, which we were listening to other random stations. Sorry, no creepy oldies music or anything. What is interesting is when it changed stations. The station it would end up on would be perfectly tuned in, and the jump between stations was very quick. Much quicker than a person could turn the knob and tuned in the station so well, and then get away from the radio without being noticed, like a second's time, just enough time for the slide to traverse the distance to the other station. No, the radio didn't have the mechanical station presets. At least twice when this happened, I was in the room, and while my back was turned to it, the radio was in a location where it would have been damned near impossible for someone to get to it, turn the station and then get out of there. It was not by a window either. On a few occasions, the volume would go way up beyond a point that I thought this thing was capable of producing. We then moved the radio to a different room, blaming it on bad power, and the problems let up. Other strange things. Lights would go on or off while you were working, including our own portable floodlights. It wasn't the power was cut or anything, but the actual switch was thrown. You could also hear footsteps above you when you were sure nobody was upstairs. The final kicker, as we were wrapping up the work on the place, I was replacing some molding in a second-floor bedroom. I had a large, heavy steel toolbox with a bunch of tools in it that must have weighed 30 or 40 pounds. One of those big craftsman jobs. I'd finished off most of what I was doing and had most of my stuff put away when our lunch showed up. It was raining outside, so we're all sitting in the main entrance way by the stairs. In fact, myself and another guy were sitting on the stairs. Everyone was accounted for. By this point, we were all always joking around how we were working in a haunted house due to all the strange stuff that was going on. But no one was taking it real seriously. Everyone was pretty much convinced that it was the combination of an old house, our imagination, and probably a few of us screwing around with each other causing the stuff. Mid-conversation about this, there was a giant crash from upstairs. One of the dudes freaked and just ran for the door. Myself and the dude sitting on the stairs next turned and went up the stairs. At the top of the stairs, you had a clear view of the entranceway to all of the rooms. So in the 3 seconds it took for us to climb them, nobody would be able to get out of a room without being spotted. Inside the room I had been working, my heavy metal toolbox had been tossed across the room, its contents scattered. The time from when it happened to when I got there was so short that stuff was still rolling around. Again, this was a 30-40 pound toolbox which was sitting on the floor and had been clearly tossed a good 10 feet. We checked the other rooms and of course found nothing. To go out the window, which was closed as it was raining, would have been a 15 feet drop into some nasty bushes. No ladders were up on the house or even off the truck for that matter that day due to the rain. Everyone working there was sitting with us while we ate, and nobody could have gotten past us and down the stairs while we checked the rooms as there were people watching the stairs. It was pretty damn scary, and the final couple of days of us working there, everyone was really on edge. Nobody would go into rooms alone, and you could tell everyone was pretty much scared shitless. The boss mentioned the goings-on to the homeowner, who was just kind of like, hey, whatever. A few years later, the place burned to the ground, and one of the guys I worked with that summer, who now lived in the town, sent me a story from the local paper. It turns out that the previous owner who lived there was a shut-in type person after his wife died a decade or so prior. Didn't ever really come out much, do much, which explained the neglect. He had died about a year prior to us working on the house, but nobody found his body for at least 6 months. The people who had hired us was his estranged son's family, who had inherited the house and were trying to sell it. The house had changed hands a couple of times in the several years after we had worked on it. Nobody ever staying very long, and it was growing a haunted legend in the town.